In today's video, we go down to Exeland, Wisconsin, and it would be about an hour and a half wait until I see my first train, which is Southbound U754 with an SD70M-2 liter and an SD75I ACC rebuild trailing. And as you guessed, a boring Gevo as a rear DPU.
Detector, mile 368.7. Southbound, no defects. Temperature 77 F. Total axles 414. Speed 38. Detector out.
Last time I checked, I'm on park property. When they called the dispatcher at the end there, I thought I was going to get called in from where I was standing. Thank goodness I didn't, because it was actually about something else. Apparently, their second unit went out or something and it stopped working. So they were going to go stop at Murry and go check it out. Well, they talk with the guy who knows how that stuff works. And then they might have to continue down to Stevens Point with only two locomotives, which is the M-2 liter and the Gevo DPU. Next would be the Southbound L564, which showed up a little bit earlier than it usually would, with a variety of power. Mostly boring though. Defect detector will go off here shortly.
Speed 46. Detector out.
Trailing the L564 is the southbound Q198, which the L564 would pull in the Murry siding to let the Q198 pass, so the L564 can work Ladysmith Yard a little later in the day.
So boring.
Detector, mile 368.7. Southbound, no defects. Temperature 79F. Total axles 4. Speed 3. Detector out.
It took about an hour and a half for the next southbound to show up, which is another tanker train with another SD70M-2 liter. like Canadian Pacific is getting pretty common to be seen on this line, which is kind of unusual, because I've rarely ever seen any foreign power on this line.
EN detector, mile 368.7. Southbound, no defects. Temperature 77F. Total axles 418. Speed 39. Detector out.
Last train of this day is northbound Q199, which met that southbound tanker train at Murry. Sorry if the audio is a little bit weird. It was raining. It started raining at a random time and it ruined my audio a little bit. But hopefully it returns normal once it dried out. Yeah, it rained for another 2 hours after that, so I just called for my ride to come get me, and then I just headed back home. It's kind of a good thing anyway, because there wasn't any trains that showed up after that one, so yeah. Wasn't very busy on this day, which was on a Sunday, like always. Hopefully Monday will be a little better. We're now on the next day, on August 11th, 2025, on a Monday. I get an earlier start at about 10:30 is by the time I reach the tracks. Nothing on the way yet, it seems. So we're going to have to wait to see what our first train will be. Hopefully today is a little busier than the last time I went rail fanning. Hopefully we get a couple train meets here on Murry siding too. It would be a long 4.5 hours until the southbound shows up, which is M344, which originates at Symington Yard in Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada, and terminates at Stevens Point, Wisconsin, along with the demo unit trailing. Next is the southbound L564, which actually sat at North Murray for a little while to wait for the L519 to clear up in the yard at Ladysmith. For once, the L564 is actually really cool. Next is northbound M345 from Stevens Point, Wisconsin to Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada with a duo of ST70M-2s. The second one was CN8898, Tyler Hayes' favorite locomotive. He will absolutely break the audio when he sees this one. You might be able to hear the ATSF rail fan pretending to be Tyler foaming over 8898. You can kind of hear him in the background as the roll by is happening. Next up is northbound M357 with a Canadian Pacific leader. For once, it's leading and not trailing. This train starts out in Markham Yard in Homewood, Illinois, and goes to Symington Yard in Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. The last train of this video is the southbound loaded potash train with double DPUs. This is probably B790, but I'm not quite sure, as it originates somewhere in Saskatchewan, Canada, and I'm not sure where it terminates.
Southbound, no defects. Temperature 70 F. Total axles 656. Speed 42.